In the middle of an election, you're probably hearing about polls all the time.
The poll shows.
New polls show.
When it comes to the polls
tell a different story.
But how do polls actually work? Getting flooded by an abundance of numbers can be overwhelming. So let's break it down. Put simply, political polls are surveys. Pollsters reach out to a random sample of people and ask who they'd vote for if the election were held today. This can be done by phone, by text, online, or even face-to-face. Of course, they can't talk to all the millions of eligible voters in Canada, but statistically, a truly random sample of just 1,000 people can get you a pretty accurate representation of the general population. There are a couple of caveats though. First, even getting enough people to respond is no easy task. The current response rate to election polls can be as low as 0.01 to 3%, which means that to reach 1,000 people, pollsters may have to reach out to over 30,000 people before they can get a large enough sample of respondents. Second, this sample is not truly random because not everyone is equally likely to respond. For instance, older adults are more likely to respond than younger people, women are more likely to respond than men, and highly committed voters are more likely to respond than undecided voters. To balance out this bias, pollsters compare the demographics of the sample to past data on the overall voting population. They calculate what it'll take to correct the bias, called weights. They then use these weights to amplify groups that are underrepresented and correct down those that are overrepresented to improve the accuracy of the polls. So, can you trust what the polls say? Well, polls can and they do sometimes get it wrong. Most infamous example in recent memory? The 2016 victory of Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton that the polls did not see coming. Here in Canada, whether at the federal or the provincial level, that can happen as well. But in both the 2019 and 2021 federal elections, the polls were pretty accurate in calling the outcomes. The important thing to note about the polls is that they're not meant to be crystal balls. All survey results contain a margin of error. The number that a poll gives you is actually an average in a range of possibilities. For a survey sample of 1,000 people, the margin of error is normally plus or minus 3%. If the sample is smaller, or if the methodology is less rigorous, that margin could be even bigger. Any point on that spectrum is considered likely. So, what can you get out of looking at polls? Instead of fixating on which party now has a small edge over the other, think instead of the range of possibilities that each party is sitting on. Suppose current poll numbers show Liberals with a 1-point lead over the Conservatives. That is not a prediction for a Liberal victory. Instead, the numbers are telling you that this is going to be a very close election and that either outcome is highly likely. You can also get a lot from looking at the trends over time and how they've changed around current events and policy changes. To get a more accurate picture, rather than relying on a single poll, it's good to look at sources that take multiple polls into account, like a poll aggregator. Think of it as a poll of polls. So, polls may not be crystal balls, but they are still useful. What they give you is a snapshot, a temperature check on the electoral sentiment at this moment. In fact, what they don't show is even more interesting than what they do show. Why do certain people vote for certain parties? How would different candidates respond to the common challenges we face? Poll numbers can tell you that. But that's where you come in. Read more about the parties' platforms. Keep yourself informed. Watch the debates. Go out and start conversations with your fellow Canadians. And more importantly, vote.